Thanks for joining us here at Rouleur Live. It's an absolute pleasure. Ellen, I know this is your first time here.
Yeah.
Welcome along. How's it
you.
been so far?
I really like it. It's a super cool event. What can I say? I mean, it would be bad if I say, well, I already go home.
Not enjoying it that much.
Yeah. No, but yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. Pleasure to have all three of you here. And for all three of you, you are game changers in what you do. And I know you all come from different backgrounds and what you're trying to do. But Ash, I want to start with you. You've been a professional since 2010. For Ellen, you've been in the pro ranks since 2006. But for you, Ash, how have you seen life change from when you first began racing professionally to where you're at now in the World Tour?
Well, yeah, things have changed a lot. So I was just discussing with Ellen behind the stage how it was quite a different start for us. You know, Ellen's Dutch and she's been riding for a very long time, whereas I only discovered my talent while I was studying at university. And so I completed my degree and then came over to Europe with very little experience, actually. So just racing locally in South Africa and straight into, well, what is the equivalent of the World Tour. And yeah, that's really been the biggest change now, is that, you know, we have so much younger talent coming through, you know, women who have chosen to create a career of cycling already at school, whereas for me, I finished an engineering degree. People thought I was totally mad to give up my engineering to come over and chase a career that wasn't paying me a salary at all. I had to make things happen for myself. I had to be creative. I had to try and motivate South African sponsors to support me while I was racing on a totally different continent in what was South African winter. So it took a lot of creativity to make my career happen and a lot of support from my family and my husband. But yeah, it's changed a lot now. It's a real career path for young girls.
Ellen, for you, how do you see it change? Because you're from the Netherlands, you've not had to make the long journey from a different continent like Ashleigh has, but that's not come without its barriers and the walls that you've needed to knock down to get to where you are today.
Yeah, like as you said already, it was so different. When I was 18 years old, I went to the elite category, and I would go to like a pro team, but I wouldn't really call it professional. I mean, yeah, we would get €150 for expenses every month, and that was it. So you basically had to, take care of everything by yourself. And it wasn't really, being a women's cyclist wasn't a profession, and I wouldn't even think about a career as something that I would earn money with or that would be my job or anything. And right now it is my job. It's really hard to quit the job actually, because also now you can make money with it. And of course, because it's the best job in the world. But that makes such a big difference that now, you can actually dream of becoming a professional cyclist.
And I guess for you, and recently, you know, having baby fast, for you becoming a mother and being able to continue your professional career has got to be one of the biggest, and a wonderful photo here from the European Championships. Wonderful.
Yeah.
For you being able to realize that you don't have to quit your profession, you can continue.
Yeah, that I never really thought of being a mom, being with my own son on a podium. I never ever saw this picture in my mind. Actually, Lizzie Dijkman was the one who was my example, who had a baby and said, I want to continue, I would just want to have a baby and then I want to come back in the sport. And even when she did it with her first child, I would think like, oh, I don't think I could ever do that. It's really not my thing. But then, time had changed and I still didn't feel like I was done with cycling, but me and my partner Benjamin, we also really had the desire to have a baby. And then we thought, why not? We can combine it, we try and we see. And so it happened.
Incredible that you can combine that. And I know for you, Kate, you're the Director of Women's Strategy at Zwift, and I know and I see you tirelessly at lots of different races and see how hard you work behind the scenes. And for you were racing in the US in your early days too, and so you've also seen this progression, and you're not just seeing that progression now, you're making a huge impact in what we see today with the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, Paris-Roubaix Femmes avec Zwift, it's really important to see that growth in the work that you do.
I love it. Let's just put this one to the audience. Who watched a women's bike race this year? How good was this season? It was absolutely incredible. Like Paris-Roubaix, Femmes avec Zwift, the Giro, the classics, and then just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we had Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. And it was the closest tour in the history of the tour. It just shattered records. It was just glorious. And I raced my bike about 15 years ago, and my parents saw one race that they showed up at, but you couldn't see it. So just the fact that we have a room of fans that are following closely, following these riders on social, able to watch on major broadcasts, able to hear the glorious voice of Hannah Walker, who knows so much about the sport, because she was doing this before. That's the beauty too, is I hear the commentators, and they were doing this. They were doing it on Twitter, when it was just on Twitter. And just to hear, the knowledge that you have on the peloton from your experience, from just following it you probably didn't get paid much your first couple of years, and I hope you're getting paid better now. But it warms my heart so much to introduce the world to the incredible beauty, the fierceness, the athleticism, and the competition of women's cycling.
Incredible. I think Kate needs and deserves a round of applause, please. Incredible. Across the board, when you see this year's, it's incredible. This is Kate with Cédrine Courbal and Scotty the Squirrel. Cédrine Courbal becoming the first French winner of a stage of the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, and that was simply incredible. But for her, she didn't really think about becoming the first French rider. I remember speaking to her only a few weeks ago, and she was saying that wasn't the aim. The aim was to win a stage and be part of that history. How much has the sport changed and evolved, Ash, since having this race on the calendar? Because it's still into its infancy, but it's making leaps and bounds. It's making strides.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been a game changer. And I remember when I first entered into the women's peloton, and coming from engineering, which is also a male-dominated field, I entered women's cycling and I was immediately frustrated because I felt like, why? Why is there such a big difference between men and women cycling? I've come from engineering where as male and female classmates, we'd work together, we'd study together. It was teamwork. We were seen as equals. And so I felt very frustrated in the beginning. And I quickly learned that frustration isn't very productive. So I had to try and change my energy. And I felt like, okay, well, I need to lead by example. And then the COVID pandemic hit. And that's where everything changed. And Zwift was a massive part of that change because they led by example. So, when we couldn't race out on the roads in the real world, Zwift put on competition and they stood by their values, and that was equality. So, for the first time ever, the Tour de France was associated with equality for both men and women, and that was in the virtual world. And interestingly enough, everyone thought COVID pandemic would take women's cycling backwards, but it's been the inflection point to push us forward.
I was going to say, do you think that's what has accelerated it at such a rate, and it has grown so rapidly in the last 4 years? Do you think that's been a huge contributing factor, Kate?
Absolutely. There's like a figure out there. It's like 75% of the value of cycling sponsorship is in the 3 weeks of the men's tour. So with women not being there, how could the sport move forward? Without being in homes, Europeans grow up, the tour is just on TV. That's what you do in July. It's in the background, it's in the foreground. And with women not being on that stage, the sport was kind of stuck. And that was the last bastion of kind of fall to really, it was that's the glass ceiling, and that comes crashing down, and now the sky is the limit. Because look what happened these last 3 years. I'm hearing that team budgets have tripled, quadrupled. rider salaries going way up, the social media amplification, like getting to know these personalities. We were holding back. I mean, this is sport at its finest. So I'm thrilled that, like, you know, Zwift, we've always made big bets. You know, we came in 10 years of Zwift this year. And we started a business on doing things differently, and we make big, bold moves. You know, we let people try out from your living room to win a pro contract. We always had parity in racing. We've tried to open the roads a bit, make cycling a little bit more accessible, inclusive, and you know, from the beginning, we've believed in women's cycling. So this was just a very natural step with us. This is an extension of what we've done, but it's also, Zwift makes smart moves, and this has been a fabulous investment because we're just trying to grow the sport. This is good for our business. This is good for every business out there. Anything that we do for women's cycling is good for cycling. And I think that the perception's finally starting to change, and I just love to see it.
Love to see it. We all love to see it. How do we keep that momentum going then? How do we keep the wheels turning, Ellen?
Yeah, good question. I think we're in a really, really good way already. If you see how big the steps are that are made, which I think, Tour de France, Paris-Roubaix, these kind of races are the biggest steps that we made the last 3 years. And I think this is, right now, I think we don't need so much more. I think we slowly need to progress, maybe Tour de France longer even. Yep. But the biggest steps are made already, I think. And I feel really thankful to still be able to experience that and still be in the peloton while the sport is evolving this much. Because now when I walk in the supermarket, people are like, hey, I saw your race last weekend. And you know, in the past, nobody even had an option to watch races on TV. And now, I don't know, a lot of people are watching that I would never expect are watching women's cycling. And that's just really cool to be part of that.
And you say about making the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift longer. One more day next year, by the way. We see so much talent coming through the ranks. And it seems like, you take Justine Gerke, for example, who won the polka dot jersey this year. She won a stage of the Tour. She began racing and started out cycling on Zwift, and her story was absolutely incredible, and now a Tour de France stage winner. Other than that, what do you think is the big factor in the big influx in talent and riders coming through the ranks, Ash?
Yeah, I mean, well, just having the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift means that young girls can now aspire to becoming professional cyclists. It's a real career choice. It's not a, what, are you crazy? You know, going over to Europe to pursue a career that's not even paying you money. It's a real career choice, and that's changing things. That means we now have so much more depth. And yeah, of course, having online platforms, it's recognizing talents like Justine, who never dreamt of being a pro cyclist. I mean, I'm just even looking at 2 of my Rocacorba Collective members sitting here in the front row, and Rianne, for example, also a full-time job, but she's racing for the Rocacorba Collective elite team on Zwift. She never imagined she'd ever be racing, but she is. And you know, Caroline, I guided her up Rocacorba just the other day to get her best time and to build confidence and to improve herself. And this is why women's cycling is moving forward, because it's these women who are getting into it, they're getting stuck in, they're watching, they're supporting, they're following us, and that's what makes the sport grow. You know, it's the interest, right?
Absolutely. Do you think the fact that for both you and Ellen, you've had long, illustrious careers and you're still very much in the pro peloton, you're both able to win races, you're still able to compete for world titles, European titles for yourself, Ellen. Do you think the fact that you're also there in that leadership role, this is kind of for both of you really, but Ellen, do you think the fact that you're able to help some of those younger riders and guide them, perhaps in ways where you might not have had that in your early career, and to really help them develop and give them that experience, do you think that also makes a huge difference in growing the talent faster or helping them stay in the sport?
Yeah, for sure. It's important, I think, that the older generation, which I'm included, helps the younger generation. And in our team, Lidl Trek, this year, we also have kind of a development team included in the professional team. So we have, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 riders from 18, 19 years old, and it's really nice to see how they come from junior to the elite category, because that's still a really big step. So that's actually something that's still work to do. I think the step from being a junior to go to the elite category is really hard, but to guide them a little bit in that, and also to just tell them, like, yeah, for me it also took a couple of years before I was really part of the race, and before I got everything under control and understood it a little bit. So don't stress, don't worry, don't want everything too quick. And it's really nice also for me to see how they experience their sport, because it's already a big difference from when I was that age, because they also have way more access to facilities. They have a team with all the facilities. They have the best of everything, so they also will grow quicker in that way.
And for you, Ash, likewise at AG Soudal, quick step for yourself. You're one of those riders who's still very much in a position to go for your own goals, but you're in that leadership role to help the younger riders grow. And of course, they've got a brilliant development program too.
Yeah, well, exactly like Ellen said. I mean, now the platform is there, you know. I mean, I remember us, you know, changing on the side of the road with towels wrapped around us just to have some privacy. You know, we have team buses, we have, you know, fully employed coaches, nutritionists, everything at their disposal. But yeah, it's really great to be an older rider, to be able to pass on the experience, the lessons that we had to learn the hard way, to help them maybe to fast track that and not to have to make those same mistakes again. But it's really incredible just to see, you know, the desire, the appetite of the young riders, how hungry they are to just grow and to be the best version of themselves. And yeah, it's wonderful to be part of that.
Things continue to grow, races continue to be added to the calendar. We had Paris-Roubaix Femmes in 2021, of course the first Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift in 2022. Next year, the first ever offer in this new generation, Milano-Sanremo. Kate, I can see you with a beaming smile. And we had a little discussion just before we came on stage about the prospects and thoughts of a Sanremo. I mean, how does it make you feel seeing this being on the calendar? And
oh, super exciting. That's going to be a great race. Yeah, just one more place that women can show up and people can see what they're made of. It's a big one on the calendar. Everybody loves it. So I think it's
it's a big step as well.
Oh yeah, big step. You know, Hannah, one of the other things I want to talk about in the momentum in women's cycling. So great to see the elevation of the pro peloton and the women's cyclists, but with that comes the elevation of women in the industry as well. One of my favorite things about the first couple of years of Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift is seeing all the industry put their women forward, like to come to the race. Yeah, like just different brands and different industry showing up, and it being an opportunity for women to take up more space in the industry, which is a really important step for the development and creating space in this sport. So I just came from tonight, just before this, we had a happy hour for Uplift. It's a mentorship program for women in cycling. This couldn't have existed. I had no mentors like 15 years ago when I got into sport, and we have 60 women at a bar before this, having the best time, talking shop, talking about the future state of the industry, getting really excited, and you're just seeing these paths being created, and that's what's going to institute real change too. Because like I said, anything that's good for women in the sport is good for the sport. So to see more women being elevated in the industry, go out there and see the different women working in brands, working their way up at the various companies is very exciting. And that to me, I see like sustainable change.
And I guess that then entices other women to come into the industry and take the leap and take the step, which is incredibly important for everybody.
Yeah. Do you remember the media at the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift? Like how many journalists, photographers, content creators? It's just really great to see, because it's always been, there's always been very few spots, and to see that opportunity being created across the cycling ecosphere is really fabulous.
Talking of the media and also other racers, Ellen, what would you like to see? I mean, we're still changing and things are going at such a rapid rate, but what else would you like to see change in the Women's World Tour in particular going forward? Is there anything that you think could be a great addition, something that you've been thinking, we've kind of been lobbying for, that we want to see?
I think they are talking about having a pro-continental level next year, and that's going to be also really important for the sport, because it means that the smaller teams also will have rules about that they need to have minimum kind of staff, minimum kind of quality of teams, and I think that's where we can really lift the sport even more, to make the sport broader, wider, more good riders. Every year it's harder for us oldies to compete with all the new riders that get already. So you see every year that the level is growing and growing and growing. But I think it will grow even more with this pro-continental status that's also coming next year. So that will be an important step.
And I think we need more racing in other parts of the world, I'd say. That's a big thing that's missing at the moment. Cycling needs to be globalized. At the moment, it is very much a European sport. And I just recently raced the African Continental Championships in Kenya. And I must say, I'm really looking forward to seeing the World Championships in Rwanda, because we do need to bring the racing to the world rather than bring the world to the racing, and in other words, Europe. So, and I think that's again where Zwift plays such an important role, because by having easy access to a high level of competition, I think we do need to start taking esports more seriously, because it really is an important pathway to bring more people into the sport and to give them access to the highest level of racing.
What are the barriers, do you think, then, of having racing elsewhere and not just having this European central focus?
Well, of course, there's the cost and the logistics. Already cycling is quite a difficult industry, in that it really is like a moving circus. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes to make sure that we have everything we need to be able to take part in the races. So that is a big issue or a barrier. But I think, I think there are ways of getting around it. There needs to be blocks of racing. Let's say if there was more racing in Africa, it would need to take place in a certain sort of block rather than going backwards and forwards. But it's not an easy issue to overcome, but it definitely is something that does need to change. Because if I just take myself for an example, I've literally had to leave my home, my continent, my family, and make a life for myself outside of Europe. And I'm grateful that I've managed to do that, and I've created not only a life for myself, a business, in a foreign country, in Spain. But it's not easy, and so that's why I really appreciate pathways like Zwift to be able to make it more accessible.
You mentioned about the esports and e-racing and how that can make a big change. And Kate, from a business model and business perspective, what kind of obstacles or challenges do you face that you've come across? And I know most of the time you're banging down that door and kicking it out the way.
Yeah, the same thing that you see across the sport is like, common misconceptions about the value of the women's market or the value of women's racing. So what's really exciting to me right now is we're building a case. Like, we're getting data, we're getting metrics, we're getting enough visibility and social media amplification that you can now point to things and say, no, this actually works. And that's what we're trying to do at Zwift, is make that case and say, hopefully lead by example in the industry, that watch the Femme is more than just watch the races. It's like, watch what happens when you invest in women's cycling. So it's, I think, there's definitely challenges, but compared to 10 years ago, I'll take these challenges. And everybody knows I love a good challenge. I'm a competitive athlete. I was a basketball player before a cyclist. So I enjoy, the challenge of getting past some of the things that get in your way. And how can we get creative? How can we get strategic? And make a really strong case for, you know, the future of cycling, because it's not just women's cycling. This sport has been slow to change over the years, and it's important for us to think differently, to think about how we can invite more people into the sport, how we can you know, reduce that friction, you know, and make it a little bit easier for people to experience the joy of cycling, whether that be competition or, you know, trips or your local coffee shop ride. There's so much in the sport for so many people that it's funny to me that it's ever been kind of exclusive, because everybody can relate to a bike. So if Zwift, if this like indoor app can help more people discover the joys and whatever dream they want to chase on a bike, I'm really happy to see it. And I was not an indoor rider. I'm a very outdoor rider. I've come a long way.
Yeah, I actually have a question for you. Do you have numbers of women on Zwift? Like, are the numbers growing?
They're growing. We're like around 20% now, which still is like, we have a ways to go. And that is indicative of the industry, of general like sales and the market and stuff. So we need to all make very concerted efforts, you know, to make women feel more welcome in this sport, to reduce those barriers. And I'm seeing a lot of that done on the community level with things like Roca Corba and like different like communities in different areas that women come into the sport often because a friend or a partner or somebody invited them on a ride. It's less the traditional, like, you know, watching the Tour de France, honestly. A lot of the newer women in the sport don't come into it from watching racing. They come into it because, you know, a friend group brought them into it, or they wanted to, you know, get fit or do a charity ride. So we need to really think about how the sport is broadening and how we can all, you know, as an industry, adapt to that. And you know, it's a great thing. Like I said, it's good for all riders.
I take a look around this room, and there's so many people standing here. There's, you know, not enough seats for everybody to get into the room, and everybody's probably thinking, well, what can I do then personally to try and help grow, whether that be in my community, they've got friends who've got no aspirations to race, but they want to try and build a community. What can everybody do, not just those who are in the industry, who are a brand, but what can each and every person in this room do to do their part?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is to watch, to follow the female athletes, because obviously that's what makes it worth a while for the brands to sponsor. But then it's to encourage your friends, you know, to invite them along to the ride, like Kate said. It's to encourage them to join a Zwift race or join a Zwift community. That was something that really stood out to me in the COVID pandemic, was how it was so much easier for women to really properly engage when they were on Zwift. So let's say I said I was hosting a real life ride, you know, the uptake would be probably 80% men, because women are intimidated and they feel they can't join a pro. But Zwift took that all away, and then hosting rides on Zwift, the women were engaging, they were asking more questions because they felt more confident in the comfort of their own home. And so that's the magic and the beauty of cycling. That's what I experienced through cycling, is that it was a form of empowerment. It helped me to grow in confidence and then to be able to translate that confidence into the rest of my life. So we just need to encourage more women to get on bikes and to build that confidence and to become, I keep saying this, the best version of themselves, because cycling is that amazing tool that can bring the best out of you.
And it's really a wonderful community, Ellen. It's a worldwide community. Everybody's welcome. Everybody can get involved.
And it's getting better and better. So I feel lucky to be part of it, and I hope a lot of more women are coming and are joining us. So come on, women.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it goes for men, husbands, friends, brothers, encouraging everybody to get on the bike or get involved or be a part of it, and even introducing them to cycling. Maybe you've got friends, girlfriends, wives who haven't even discovered cycling yet.
Exactly. Yeah, invite somebody to watch a race, join a ride, experience the joy that you get on a bike. So, yeah, it's as simple as that. It's the gift that keeps on giving, and there's something in cycling for everybody. So always remember that, you know. It can be very myopic sometimes, cycling, you know. You get a little competitive or a little narrow-minded, but it's really for everyone, and it's a beautiful thing. So.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure. Before you head off, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Kate Veronneau, Ellen van Dijk, and Ashleigh Moolman Pasio.